In 1985, Neil Postman wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, in which he describes what has happened to aspects of culture, such as politics, religion, and news, because of the shift in the paradigm of public discourse. He describes this shift from the telegraph to photography, and finally to television, illustrating how everything is portrayed as pure entertainment with no serious discourse left. Because this book was written almost 30 years ago, one wouldn't expect it to still be relevant to our culture, but after examining core concepts in each chapter, it is obvious that many of the arguments Postman makes are applicable to the digital age that we live in. The chapter that stood out most to me in the book was called And Now This, about the disintegration of serious news material because of the entertaining way it is presented on television. After reading this chapter and hearing our class discussion, it is more than obvious that my generation no longer turns to the television for anything, especially to learn about matters happening in their neighborhood or anywhere else in the world. This got me thinking. If Postman thought news was presented as entertainment on the TV in 1985, before the heightened age of the internet, how much more entertaining and useless is the news we receive now from outlets such as Twitter and Facebook? Everyone around my age either follows a news program or newspaper on Twitter to get informed about what is going on, or at least reads what others are saying about it on Facebook. I think this amplifies the problems that Postman saw on the television. Every piece of news we are exposed to is completely fragmented, with no context or value attached to it. And we are living in a world of disinformation, which only creates the illusion of knowing. The first problem here is that of a fragmented discourse by which we are informed about news. Postman focused on news programs on the television to make his point, describing how viewers are just given information about a topic or issue, usually no more than 60 to 90 seconds long, without any background attached to it. Newscasters just go from one topic to the next without time to reflect or interpret the previous segment, causing them to be without value and therefore without essential seriousness, that is to say, pure entertainment. By looking at Twitter timeline or a Facebook newsfeed, it is clear that although the paradigm of discourse has switched to a different medium, the argument still holds true. Tweets can only be 140 characters in length, and news programs are constantly tweeting one headline of a story after another with no logical progression or organization. For example, take ABC News' tweets. First, you could read about the sheriff who was murdered, then about a basketball coach who was fired, and finally about a ruined career caused by hair loss. If those aren't fragmented, unrelated topics, then I don't know what are. ABC's Twitter head even claims to see the whole picture, but when you click to read one of the stories, there are only about 280 words. 280 words about a murder doesn't really seem like the whole picture. Now take tweets by the Huffington Post. Meth addiction, North Korea, a fashion designer, then gay marriage. More fragmented pieces of news. Some of these stories are substantially more important than the others, but they're all presented on the same level and in the same way, making them all seem equally important. When you click on one of the stories, say the one about the cure for meth addicts, you are bombarded by ads and links to other stories of totally unrelated topics. Maybe I'm wrong here, but someone who takes the time to click on an article about meth addicts probably isn't looking to be distracted by stories about Lindsay Lohan spilling out of her dress or Magic Johnson's son and his boyfriend. There are countless examples anywhere you turn on the internet, especially Twitter, that demonstrate the evolution of fragmented discourse, which started with the television and has come to the point today where totally unrelated topics are presented side by side, appearing equally important. Another point that Postman makes about television news programs that still holds true today with our technology is the issue of disinformation. On page 107 of the book, he says that disinformation does not mean false information. It means misleading information, misplaced, irrelevant, fragmented, or superficial information. Information that creates the illusion of knowing something, but in fact leads one away from knowing. I believe this to be even more relevant to society today than it was when Postman was writing the book. Although society is developing a different sort of brain that is able to decipher what is and is not truthful on the internet, it's not perfect yet. We know the flashy pop-up ads about winning a new iPhone or money are lies and scams, but the problem lies in information that our friends and followers post on social media. There have been many times that I have seen someone post something false on Facebook or Twitter about a current event, and then others retweet or respond, believing this information to be true. Just because the information is out there on the internet does not mean it's factual, and this is a concept that society still struggles with. For example, there was a story circulating by what appeared to be the WNBC website in New York City about the hunt for a man who was intentionally spreading HIV. However, this article turned out to be a hoax, damaging the credibility and future of a man whom it was about. Another recent example was the death hoax of the famous rapper Lil Wayne a few weeks ago. Multiple entertainment news websites and Twitters are posting about his death, caused by overdose, even going into details about last rites. But he and his friends took to Twitter shortly after to falsify the rumors. These are only a few examples of all the disinformation that the internet creates in terms of news, and attest to how not only are Postman's arguments about this topic still relevant, but are even more applicable in the digital age. So to sum everything up, most arguments Neil Postman made in regards to news being stripped of all seriousness for the sake of being presented as entertainment still hold true in today's society because of social medias such as Facebook and Twitter. News today is presented in an even more fragmented way, and there's much more disinformation because of the many outlets through which we receive our news.